Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We are talking fantasy baseball. I'm your host, Eric Henriksen, alongside the man, the myth, the legend,
Uh,
Josh Day. Josh, how you doing?
Pretty good. Although looking at my 10 team, I don't know that I would call me a myth or a legend.
Oh, stop it. Actually,
Maybe a whimper.
oh no. You and I were just talking before rolling here to record the podcast that you were thinking of tearing it down already, and it's May 17th. But the reason you were thinking about it is because you've been in this position before where you draft really well and you somehow are far down in the standings. Like you're losing pretty badly to the last place team this
Yep.
week. Like we're trying to figure out what's going on here. And I thought it'd be really good content to talk about. So thank you for uh, amusing me here.
Sure.
And I think it's really good opening topic is like how your team with Vlad Jr., Devers, Abrams, Carroll, Merrill. Like how a team like this, and that's just the hitting, like the pitching staff, Pablo Lopez, Yamamoto, Schwellenbach, your relievers, Hader, Duran, Walker, Miller, you've got Devin Williams too, and Justin Martinez, Brian Wu. It's like this is a really good team. People
Yeah.
would kill to have this team, and for some reason, I think because it's a head-to-head league, you've just run into some really bad luck.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry. I'm looking at the team, and it's like there's no way this is an eighth place team. I'm sorry, it's just not.
Yeah, it's been very frustrating because I look at this lineup as you just, listed off these names and I had a lot of I made some off-season trades and I gained a lot of like higher picks in the draft and I was able to, I think I put together a pretty solid team here. And it's just like here we are on May 17th. I'm about to be rolled pretty hard by, I guess we'll see what happens at the end of, today is Saturday, but, we'll see what happens tomorrow night. But, I'm about to be trounced by the last place team that doesn't have like a very competitive team on paper. I mean, they do have Otani and Paul Skeens, but it's very stars or scrubs type lineup. And then it's just like yeah, it's been very frustrating, and it's just I just feel like do I have to tear this down? Because I'm a little bit at a loss of like where to take this team at the
N-
moment.
no, I you can't tear it down. First of all, because it's May 17th, right? Let's
Yeah,
put that out there. We've been saying it for weeks. It's still early, but it gets late quick, uh, right?
yeah,
So just thinking about why your team might be struggling right now, and I've been in the similar position where I've traded up in the draft where I've had a lot of early picks. What that limits you to it limits the amount of early season standouts you can pick up,
yeah.
because you don't really have those later picks that you can just rotate out, and search for the hot player on the wire. You have name brand value players, right?
Hmm.
Like a
Yeah.
Devin Williams who struggled early, but you can't drop him
Nope.
because you spent too much draft capital on somebody that's supposed to be, a top two closer in baseball. So you kind of, in some respects, are stuck with the
Yeah.
roster that you draft for longer than most people might be who don't have the high, a lot of early round draft picks. And
Yeah.
so you are currently losing to a team that's rostering Gavin Lux, Javi Baez, Britton Doyle. Yes, they have Otani, and now I look at their pitching staff. I mean, outside of Skeen, I guess they got Skeens and DeGrom. They've got a lot of closers, so you would
Well,
anticipate the
not they have a
ratios were
lot of
lower.
non-closers.
Yeah, that too.
They've
So
lucked into Weaver, I think.
yes, I'm looking at this team and I'm going, okay, so they have quite a few hot waiver wire pickups here that have
Mhm.
just had great weeks, and it's just bad. This team is 18 and 52 coming into this week. right? Like that's bad.
And I just needed to face my team to find their winning streak, I guess.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's a really bad record, and they're getting carried by Javi Baez this week. It's just, to me, it's bad luck. And if I look at your schedule in general, you tied the first place team last week. That's good, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're not going to win, you want to tie. You tied. You beat a team that's above you in the standings the week before that. I think you just ran into a team that just was on fire the week before
Yeah.
that.
I think
That's
I've
kind
run
of,
into
yeah,
that's sort of
middle of
been
the
a
pack.
story is I've been running into like I've also had like some injuries that I think kind of hampered some things. Like
Yep.
Jackson Merrill was injured, I think, after the first week. And
Yep.
so he was out for a while and he was like a big producer. Mike Trout is injured, surprise, surprise. Tommy Edman is injured. Michael Harris, I don't know if he's remembered how to play baseball, but
Oh,
he's stinking up my outfield. Although his underlying numbers look good, so I don't know. Maybe he'll come around. Vlad Guerrero isn't hitting for as much power. Wilson Contreras was really bad for the first month, and now he's kind of turning it around. Devers was famously bad for the first like week and a half, but now he's kind of back to who we think he is. Corbin Carroll is awesome. So I just wonder if I'm kind of lacking like a just like a consistent power guy. That seems to be a trend. Not guy, but like power output. Like it's like a bunch of guys that it's like no one's like superlative at like like prodigious power. It's like maybe 30 homers from a couple guys. I know Carroll's on a crazy pace right now. I'm not sure if he's going to do like 40. I mean, but maybe, I don't know. But, I just don't know that I have like the boppers. I mean, as far as hitters and then pitching, I've been very much hamstrung by my closer situation. As you mentioned, I paid up for Devin Williams and now he's doesn't have a closer job. So now I have, I'm playing the closer carousel. I have like Shelby Miller, and I've just been picking up a bunch of closers, which has sort of kept me from like picking up interesting arms. And then I've just, Pablo Lopez was injured, and then I just think it's bad luck where some of my good arms just had bad weeks against, hot teams. And then I'm just like, well, I'm stuck with Devin Williams, so I can't stream. So, I think it's precisely what you were talking about, where you have all this name brand, you have all these guys who on paper you're just like, oh, well, I'm set. My season's set. I don't need to stream. I'm just gonna stick with these guys. But then, that's not how it plays out in real time week to week.
I,
So I think
I'm
I've just been a little hamstrung by injury and
yeah.
roster constraint.
Yeah, I think honestly it's gonna mainly come down to roster constraint, and let me tell you why. You think you're lacking a big bopper? You're tied with me for second in total home runs so far in the
No way,
season as a
really?
team. Yep, with 61. You're tied with me for second place, only four back of first
Wow.
place. You are leading
Really?
the league in RBIs. Yep.
Wow.
You are second in batting average.
No way.
Yep. And you are second in OPS.
Wow.
Runs scored run scored you're in seventh, but that's it. Oh well, and I guess stolen bases too. You're also in seventh, but that's it. You are
Huh.
top in 4 out of the 6 offensive
Interesting.
categories. Yep. And if I
Huh.
look at pitching, let's go over to the pitching side. You're second in saves despite your Devin Williams
Right.
situation. You are middle of the pack in strikeouts.
Eh.
That's fine. It's still early. Some guys haven't hit
Yeah, yeah.
their strides yet. You're middle of the pack in ERA, which I found interesting.
Huh.
Your whip, you're in second in whip,
Hmm.
and K per nine, you're third, and quality starts, you're tied with a bunch of people for fourth place with 27. So like I look at
Huh.
your team stats, and it's like there's no way you should be that low at all,
Yeah.
right? Home runs, I said you were tied for second with me, but you're 0-5 and 1 in the home run category.
Wow.
That's bad luck.
Yeah.
So I would implore you,
Yeah.
do not sell because
Yeah.
your team, you're if you look at your squad and you go underperformer, 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 and you're still at the tops in some of these offensive categories, like just wait until guys wake up. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to be an unstoppable force. And that's happened in this league multiple times to several different managers where your first half of the season is
Yeah.
atrocious, or even their first month, month and a half, and then the second half, you do a second half surge, and you
Oh
come
yeah.
through, and you can win a championship. So just looking at the counting stats, comparing those counting stats to the weekly results in terms of your record in the categories, it makes no sense. It's not adding up. It's a 1 + 1 does not equal 2 situation for you. So I implore you, do not sell.
All right.
Give
I
it
think
time.
I'll give it time. I don't think I was serious, but it was just kind of like,
It's
so
an exasperation.
frustrating.
Yeah,
It's just
you're
like,
throwing your
come
hands up. You're like,
on.
what's going on? Well, thank you for humoring me. I know now we went on this giant tangent to open up the show. And I just wanted to say to everybody, apologies for not getting the show out on time this week. Josh and I did have other commitments yesterday that prevented us from getting out this week's full-length episode on schedule, but that means we did have an extra day's worth of baseball that we can talk about, so that's great.
Yeah.
And so on today's show, besides talking about Josh's team, we're going to talk about the prospect call-ups of the week because there seem to be a lot of big-time prospect call-ups. And we're going to talk about some players that caught our eye this week, like, players that maybe we added, players maybe we dropped, players that maybe other managers added, just some interesting players of the week. Let's get right to those prospects. Josh, one that you roster, the number 4 prospect in MLB Pipeline's ratings at the moment, Jordan Lawlar got the call this week. He's just 22 years old, got a taste of the majors 2 years ago. What are you expecting out of Jordan Lawlar?
Yeah, as you said, it seems like he's been a top prospect forever, yet he's only 22. He got a shot with the Snakes a few seasons ago, but that he didn't really make a lot of noise, and then he was hampered by injury. Yeah, he's up with the D-backs now and sort of getting a shot.
Sort of
But
is the right way to put that.
he's currently blocked, and I think this is actually, sorry, spoiler alert, but I think this is kind of a trend with pretty much all of these prospects we're going to be talking about. But he's currently blocked by other play everyday players like Eugenio Suarez, Perdomo, and I think some other guys that are having good seasons. So I think the plan is he's only going to get like 4 starts a week, unless he can shove his way into everyday playing time. But I just think that's not a great recipe for fantasy managers because one, you don't know when he's going to play, so then you're going to have to constantly look at your lineup right before, as lineups get set throughout the day, you'll have to look, oh, is he starting? Oh, should I start him? And two, I just worry about these guys that get called up and have to get acclimated to big league pitching, and if they're on again, off again, how are they going to develop a rhythm? So I just feel like I'm a little lukewarm on this. I think I might actually drop him in our 10-teamer. I just, I'm already rostering Christian Campbell. So I think that's enough exposure to a top prospect on my team. And I just think I'm not sure Lawlar is going to be much use to me. I know he was making a lot of noise in the minors before his call up. He was hitting for power, but he was also hitting in a very, very hitter friendly environment. And I just don't see him as a big power bat. I don't think that's what he's going to become, develop into in the majors. I think he's going to be more of just like a low power, just kind of like a middling power, probably more speed, decent average type guy, good counting stats. But I just don't know if that's going to be a difference maker, for me, especially this season, in the context of our 10-team league. So, I think he's kind of an avoid now, especially in redraft. I think you could probably monitor him if you're interested, and see if he proves a point, makes his case for everyday at bats. But until then, I think it's kind of an avoid.
Yeah, Jordan Lawler's exit velocities in the minor leagues were a bit of a red flag. I think he did hit one this year, 110 miles an hour. So the I guess the raw power might be there, but the game power certainly is not. I believe his average exit velocity was under 90 miles per hour. Like you said, played in the Pacific Coast League, very
Yeah.
hitter friendly environment there. And he's just not going to play very often.
Yeah.
Now he could force their hand if he plays very well, if he hits.
Hmm.
But I would just, caution. Don't expect it right away. Don't expect him to really be much help for your fantasy teams. I think outside of speed in the immediate future.
Yeah, I agree.
Long-term future, a couple years from now, maybe he grows into that power. Looking at his prospect ratings on Fangraphs, he's got a raw power of 60. But as we talked about before the show, those numbers may actually be kind of meaningless. So I'm
Yeah.
going to take us on another tangent really quickly. Something that you brought to my attention was on Fangraphs was Gavin Lux versus Juan Soto's prospect reports.
Yeah.
And we talked about a month ago about future value
Yeah.
and being interested in numbers that were about 65 and higher. Josh, just tell everybody what Gavin Lux's future value was on Fangraphs versus Juan Soto's, and then the raw power numbers.
Yeah, so Gavin Lux's future value is a whopping 70,
Woo!
which is kind of as high as it gets. I mean, it certainly is pretty much doesn't get much higher than that.
I don't think I've seen higher than that.
I think Vlad Jr. has a 70.
Well,
But
then
yeah,
there you go. That's a good
he
that's a good metric for what a 70 should look like.
yeah, and yeah, he has a raw power of 65, which if you've followed Gavin Lux in his career, I think has fallen well below that.
Yes. Now,
Um,
what's Juan Soto's future value and raw power? But give them the raw power number first.
Juan Soto has a raw power. It's was it 55, 60? So realized 55, and then future is 60.
And Gavin Lux, mind you, was 65, 65. Okay. Now,
Yeah,
what's Juan Soto's future value?
50. Which, I mean, what?
Listen, listen. We don't get everything right, okay?
Oh, I
Nobody
didn't make
can
that
get
number.
everything right. But I don't think we miss that far. Like that
I
is
mean,
a whew.
Aaron Judge is the future value of 55, but I mean, he does have a raw power, 70. He's 70 70, so I think they got that right. But yeah, that was another one I think people missed on throughout the industry.
To give Gavin Lux a 70 future value and a raw power 65, 65, and Juan Soto got a 50, 55, 60. I mean,
Yeah.
that is I'm still feeling the breeze from that whiff. That is not great. But so that was just a quick tangent to say about Jordan Lawler. And that'll go for all these prospects. That you really need to take this prospect report if you're using it on Fangraphs with a grain of salt, because Jordan Lawler's future value is 55, so we got the same as Aaron Judge and above Juan Soto. So if we're learning anything about Jordan Lawler, he's going to be worse than Gavin Lux, but better than Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. Which does that make him a Hall of Fame player? I don't know. No,
It-
all
I
kidding
think I
aside.
think I'm I think I'm gonna hold on to Lawler after this conversation. And what am I thinking, Eric?
I don't know. What are you thinking? All kidding aside, you might not see it right away with Jordan Lawler, but he could eventually get there. and exceed those numbers, or he could fall very short of them. That is what that whole discussion of Lux versus Soto's Fangraphs prospect report is meant to say. So moving on to the next player is Dalton Rushing, catching / outfield prospects. Is he an outfield prospect?
They had him playing in the outfield, but I think he's mostly known for catcher.
Catching. Right. Yeah. Left-handed hitter, obviously throws right-handed if you're a catcher. So Dalton Rushing comes up for the Dodgers this week. Josh, what do you think?
I mean, I think he's a slightly more touted prospect in some ways than Lawler, but similar to Lawler, I'm a little sour on Rushing for fantasy purposes due to his questionable playing time. Because right now I believe they view him as the backup catcher. LA views him as the backup catcher to
Correct.
Will Smith. Will Smith, like he's not going to usurp Will Smith.
Right. You're talking about like one of the top 5 catchers in baseball.
Exactly. He's still in his prime. He's still hitting. He's a good catcher. I think they've signed him through like 20 into the 2030s. So, you know, I guess he could if and also Rushing isn't playing every day because right now I think I read a report that they just want him up, getting comfortable with the pitchers and kind of, I don't know, getting used to the majors. So he just doesn't have guaranteed everyday playing time. So I'm just not. I know he hit a little bit the other day, but that was kind of a blowout game against the A's. So I'm not sure. I think there was like position stuff. I'm not sure if that's a true test of who Dalton Rushing is. Now, I guess if he does start hitting, the Dodgers have some outfielders that are like Conforto that aren't really doing anything. So I guess they could make way for Rushing, but they also have Teoscar Hernandez and Tommy Edman on the IL, which they're due back. So it's going to get crowded pretty quickly.
Edman is due back tomorrow.
That's right. So to me, this is like tin, aluminum tin hat conspiracy, but to me, this kind of reads as like the Dodgers kind of like laying down some trade bait.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think they're just kind of bringing him up and showing that he's, possibly majors ready and they could trade him mid-season, but
I
don't know. I think it's an avoid in shallow leagues for now. I know he was picked up in our 12-teamer, but I just don't think he's going to have enough playing time right now to really matter.
I think I read Dave Roberts said that he's going to play sorry if you said this, 2 days a week, and that's it.
That's even worse.
It's not great. But I agree with you. This like reeks of trade bait. Especially because Will Smith, like you mentioned, is signed until 2033.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's just some guy. He is an elite catcher in baseball, defensively and offensively. So it's there's just no room for Rushing for a very long time. Yeah. So I think they're probably going to trade him. Maybe not this year because they DFA'd Austin Barnes, but perhaps in the offseason. But I could totally see them trading him this year. And then just signing, Joe Schmo off the street to be the backup catcher. It really doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. But moving on to another catching prospect who got the call this week. He's been described as a bowling ball, to put it nicely. Moises Ballesteros of the Cubs, another catching prospect for the Cubs. Miguel Amaya already in the major leagues. Now they've got Ballesteros and they've got Babe Ruth, Carson Kelly. So, what do you think of Ballesteros?
Yeah, I think he's kind of like in the Alejandro Kirk mold. Like isn't he like 5'8" or something, and just like this out gentleman.
Yeah, he's built like a Tortuga. He's built like La Tortuga. Yeah, he's 5'8", 200. Yep.
I think he was making a lot of noise in AAA. I'm not sure where the playing time's going to be. because as you mentioned, they have Babe Ruth and Carson Kelly, and I think Amaya is hitting pretty well. So between those two, to me, this just seems like a cup of coffee while Ian Happ is on the mend. Um, so I think probably this is like saved for deeper leagues where maybe a two catcher league, or you just need a Hail Mary with a catcher, but I'm not sure this has a lot of staying power.
I 100% agree with you there. I will say it is very impressive. His 10.7% strikeout rate in AAA this year is 8 points lower than it was the year before in the minors. And this guy, he doesn't strike out. And the power grades out as, again, grain of salt, as 50 with a future value of 45. So I think Ballesteros is the guaranteed Hall of Famer in this group that we're talking about here.
That's true, yeah.
No. He really doesn't have a second position he can play other than catcher either, because he is
No.
5'8", and you don't want a 5'8" first baseman. You want
Yeah,
a bigger
go over his
target. You definitely want a bigger target over at first base. But yeah, he's built like La Tortuga, and he basically is only going to play catcher, and there is no spot for him right now. So I think you can safely pass on Ballesteros. Now we're going to move to a catcher's battery mate. We got two of them to talk about. Daniel Zebulon Matthews. Sorry, one more time. Zebby Matthews.
There we go.
Getting the call for Minnesota. Now, he did pitch for them last year, but he's making his season debut this year for the team. They've been very cautious with pitchers in Minnesota this season.
Yeah.
What are we thinking for Daniel Zebulon Zebby Matthews?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of preseason hype for Matthews, but since then the hype has, I think, died down quite a bit. I think particularly due to the Twins, as you said, not aggressively calling him up. And I think also partly due to his cratering K rate and ballooning walk rate in the minors. And I also think his velocity has been down. So it's hard to say, like, from my understanding, he's not of the caliber of like the Bubba Chandler or Andrew Painters of the pitching prospects that are, about to get the call. So I would say, like, if you're really in need of pitching, sure, pick him up, see how this start goes, how his first start goes. But I would say, like, definitely, as far as like pitching prospects, save those fab pennies for Bubba Chandler or Andrew Painter.
I'm really hoping, because of all the players that we're talking about in this list, he's the one that I roster in one of our leagues.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that he can at least be serviceable. Maybe he can be, my 8th pitcher, my 7th pitcher on my roster. This
Yeah.
is the league where I believe it was last week or the week before, we talked about Jackson Jobe and Dustin May. I have since
Yep.
dropped both of them. So maybe he's, the back end guy that I can just set and forget and not have to worry too much, because he shouldn't really have any innings concerns. He's got really good control. Now, I know the walk rate has gone up recently, but then why are you calling him up? I know they sent down Simeon Woods Richardson.
Yep.
So they're swapping him there. I don't know. I have high hopes because he's on my roster. And I would
There
just
you
like
go.
it to make my life easy. But
Well, maybe I will.
yeah, hopefully. I don't even think he's on MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects, believe it or not. So
Yeah, I hadn't really heard of him until this preseason. So, but we'll see. People pop and do pretty well all the time.
yeah, look, he's already 25 years old. He pitched 37 innings in the majors last year, to a tune of a 6.69 ERA, so not great.
All right.
But he added velocity. He added velocity this year. Who knows?
Who knows?
I have
We'll see.
Look, I'm not asking for an ace here. I don't think he's going to be an ace, but if he can just be
Come on,
serviceable.
Zebby.
All right, moving on. We got one more pitching prospect who got the call, or who is getting the call technically this weekend. McLean Abel, better known as Mick Abel, I believe for the Phillies. Now, that's a name that you might not know that wasn't really on many prospect lists, I believe, if at all. Any interest in McLean Abel, better known as Mick Abel?
Well, I have to admit I've never heard of him.
That's fair.
And I thought this was a made up name that you put on this rundown as kind of like a spoof.
Nope, that's
So,
real.
yeah, I might have to cede the floor to you on this one, Eric.
All right, I'm gonna make it
I'm
quick. Ready? Not interested. Leave them on the wire. Done. Moving on. Players that the players that caught our eye this week. All right, Josh, players that caught our eye. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Maybe we added these guys. Maybe we added them to our watch list. Maybe we dropped them. Maybe 100 other players added them. But these are just some guys that were like the hot names of the week. And first up is somebody that you added for today, I noticed, is Josh Young
yeah.
of the Texas Rangers. Now, he shares your name, so how does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, I was immediately drawn to him because of that. No, I think he's been really setting the world on fire past 2 weeks. Pretty hot, and he's also hitting for power, which, as we discussed earlier, I felt like until you've opened up my eyes, I felt like my team needed that power. So yeah, I picked him up, as I said earlier. I've been dealing with some injuries to Mike Trout and to Tommy Edmonds, so sort of the back end of my hitter roster, I've just sort of been plugging in hot players. I had Trent Grisham earlier this week, but of course I picked him up after the 2-homer game, and he hasn't done anything
We talked
since.
about that last week.
And then he was out of the lineup today, so I was like, well, I don't really want to deal with the Yankees plugging and playing of guys. So yeah, I just went for this is kind of a hot hand play for a Hail Mary to end my weekend. Maybe I'll hold him on to him next week. I think he has some good matchups. But yeah, I think he was the high end prospect. To me, my understanding of him as he's been up, with his major league career is he's been kind of streaky, especially with the power. I think one thing that's kind of interesting about him is that I noticed like his average exit velocity is kind of on the lower side.
Yeah, it's 22nd percentile.
Yeah, which is kind of weird, even though he's supposed to be like kind of a power guy. So I kind of wonder if that caps his overall, ceiling for power. But he also has dealt with extensive injuries and long stays on the injury list. So, maybe we don't have a full sense of who Josh Young is. I think he's in his prime right now. So I guess he could be someone you have on your roster for a little while, and maybe not. I don't know, but he's certainly hot right now.
Yeah, he's a very weird player to figure out because he hits for power. There's plenty of power in his bat, but the exit velocity readings, like you said, and they're not great.
Yeah.
87.7 average exit velocity. His max exit velo is 108 this year. So I don't know what to make of him.
Yeah.
He has cut his strikeout rate by 5%.
Yeah, I mean, I was, to open it up a little more, I was looking at the wire this morning, and I think there was a number of players I was looking at, and I think I whittled it down to Josh Young and Taylor Ward, who's also been, yeah. Well, there isn't a lot to, lot out there, so. I was just like looking at their numbers under the hood, and to me, it just like Ward is hitting for power. I mean, at least he has been over the past week or so. But just looking at his like plate discipline under the hood just really kind of turned me off. And I think Young looks a little bit better. As you said, he cut his K rate a bit. So I just kind of felt like I wanted to pick somebody that, isn't just gonna be all or nothing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're going to get a little bit more of something rather than all or nothing from Josh Young. 79% contact percentage, up 8 points from last year. Cut his swinging strike rate by 5% as well. And surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, I should say, the K rate has come down 5% as well. So if he's on your wire, you need a third baseman, you need a utility guy. He's hot, pick him up, see where it goes. I mean, he's 27, so like you said, he's in the prime probably of his career.
Mhm.
But he's oft injured, so just be aware of that as well.
Yep.
So speaking of another guy who's oft injured, added a couple ticks of velocity to his repertoire this year. Ryan Weathers made his first start of the season earlier this week against the Cubs. 5
Yeah.
innings, 5 strikeouts. What do you think of Ryan Weathers?
Well, I think it's great that he's seemingly held on to all his, like I think the uptick in velocity that we saw in spring training, kind of like all those gains that I think we witnessed in spring training, seemingly he's held on to. And he had a fantastic start against a really hot team. So yeah, I think I think you were one of them. If you were smart enough to stash Ryan Weathers, you should be pretty psyched about using him on a week to week basis. And I think the biggest worry would be health. Um, I don't know if he's going to have a setback or whatever, but I think you can assign that worry to any starting pitcher.
Yes.
So yeah, I think if he's out there, I would definitely pick him up and start him.
Yeah, I picked him up to stash him in the 10 team. I wish I had done that in the 12 team because
Yeah.
now our favorite manager in the 12 team has him. I don't know how he's going to value him, but I look at Weathers just like I look at Christopher Sanchez. You add velocity to every single one of your pitches. You have a forearm strain, which costs you the first, month and a half of the season. How long are you going to stay healthy? We've talked about that ad nauseum. I don't want to go too much into that, but
Yeah.
that is the giant red flag for Ryan Weathers. Other than he was injury plagued even last season, but he was very serviceable when he was healthy. So you hope that while he's healthy now, he'll be very serviceable and maybe can be a little bit better than that. He does get the Cubs again though in a few days. So back-to-back outings against the same team. I don't particularly love that unless you're
Yeah.
dealing with an ace. So maybe just be a little bit cautious starting Ryan Weathers this upcoming week. Next up, a guy you added in one of our leagues, Logan Henderson. His second time up for the Brewers this season. He's looked good both times. What do you think?
Yeah, he's looked good. Kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think he's been on a lot of like top prospect lists. But yeah, I think I noticed someone picked him up in our 10 teamer, and then I saw him in a couple of fantasy columns. And then I noticed he was available in our 12 teamer, and I'm so desperate for pitching in that league. Yeah, when I checked him out on Fangraphs, he's looking like he's earning what he's doing so far. I will say, with some of these newer pitchers, there's probably a lower floor with them. So, I don't really know what to expect going forward with him. I doubt he's going to be an ace, but and also I think another concern for him is job security, because I think the Brewers have like Aaron Savale and Brandon Woodruff due back, maybe. um, but I guess if Logan Henderson can continue some semblance of this success, maybe he makes a case for himself. But yeah, I think so far he's been doing pretty good.
Yeah, he looks good under the hood. He was on Fangraphs 2025 top 100 list.
Oh, wow.
It came in at number 91. He's got a future value of 50, and his changeup grades out as a 70. So
He is the Juan Soto of pitchers.
hey, he might be. Look, his minor league numbers were good. They were never spectacular. Always a strikeout guy, though.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, I'd take a strikeout guy over a contact guy.
Yo, absolutely. Walks never were a major issue. This year, actually, I think was his highest walk rate in the upper minors, in 30 innings. But he might just have flown under the radar, and that happens with guys from time to time. And You may have picked up a gem. Like I said, all the under the hood numbers are looking really good. He's got a
Yeah.
11% swinging strike rate. The stuff plus numbers don't align with what some pundits really like, but very good location plus. I know if you can put the pitch where you want, whenever you want, you're gonna be good. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I liked his numbers. I think I might have, I don't remember who I dropped him for, but I know I had Gunnar Hoagland,
that's who I think that was the swap he made.
and I just liked, yeah, I liked his under the hood numbers, Henderson's numbers better than Hoagland's numbers, and I also like where he pitches better. His home park is, I think, is a better venue than in Sacramento.
And that's saying something because Milwaukee is not necessarily the best pitcher's
No,
park
but
either.
I don't know.
Oh,
Sacramento.
oh, that
That's
one's that
in the
one's
summer.
oh boy, the ball is gonna fly out of Sacramento. Maybe you should pick up Lawrence Butler, who was dropped in that league. Anyway, that's a story for another week.
Shocked.
But speaking of Oakland, well done leading us into somebody who plays for the Athletics, Jacob
Oh
Wilson,
yeah.
shortstop. Some would say light hitting, some would not, but he's off to a very good start. What do you think of Jacob Wilson?
Have you seen video on this guy?
I watched
His
him.
batting stance?
I've watched when the Yankees played Oakland last week.
I mean, he makes like Hunter Pence look like a statue. Like this guy's just like wiggling and shaking and like I don't know. I mean, yeah, I know Jacob Wilson has made some noise. I think he had like what, a 2 homer game?
He did. He did. And
Yeah.
that accounts for 40% of the home runs he's hit this season.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it his average exit velocity, I think, is like 86.
Yep.
I think I
better
saw,
than Matt Shaw's.
and yeah, well, I think this guy's reserved for deeper leagues, my opinion. Like looking at his minor league track record, he doesn't have a lot of power or speed. So to me, he kind of looks like just like a slap hitting infielder that isn't really, I mean, hey, maybe I could be wrong. But I just don't foresee him cracking the top 10. What is he? Shortstop, second base?
Shortstop only.
Yeah, I think shortstop's so deep, you know. I guess if he's hitting hot, pick him up, but I just don't think he's a long-term asset for shallow leagues.
I don't either. But the standout skill that he has is contact. He
Mm.
makes contact at an elite level, 94.8% zone contact rate, 92% overall. I look at Jacob Wilson and I go, is he just Luis Ariz?
Oh, yeah.
But he plays in a better ballpark, so maybe the power will be a little bit better. I
I just
don't
don't
see
think
more.
so.
Yeah,
86. I
yeah.
mean, I know it's only like a month and a half, but even his minor league numbers are nothing like crazy standing out here.
Players like this, their skill sets don't often translate to the majors. Like, who was the last guy other than Luis Ariz who was a super contact guy with no speed that was fantasy relevant? Even Ariz, I could argue, is not fantasy relevant for the type of leagues that we play in. Like for
Well,
like
he's
deep
like a
roto
first
leagues.
baseman, which is like,
Oh yeah, definitely not. No, but yeah, I don't know. I just think that there are guys that get super hot in a very short amount of time. They like microwave to ultra levels of inferno,
yeah.
and everyone goes wild for them, especially if they're younger and don't have a track record. And then they come crashing back down to earth, and that guy's back on the wire 2 weeks later. I'll give you a very good example of one from this year already. Your favorite, Kyron Paris.
Yeah.
Jacob Wilson's probably got a little bit more talent than Kyron Paris, especially with his contact ability. But I just don't see him being fantasy relevant. Not enough
Yeah.
juice.
Unless he can Stephen Kwan his way into relevancy.
Oh, there's a good name.
But even that took like a season or two, I think, for Kwan.
Yeah, but Kwan also runs.
That's true. Yeah.
So you have at least 25, 30 stolen base upside for Stephen Kwan. You don't have that with Jacob Wilson. His high in the minor leagues is 4.
Also, like, what shortstop are you gonna play him over?
You're
Like,
not.
I think he's gonna be like he's gonna be in like the high 20, like mid 20s in the short, I would guess, in like shortstop lists. Like, I mean, I'd play like Volpe probably over him.
Not enough juice in that orange to be squeezed. Moving over to the mound real quick, we've got Jordan Romano from the Phillies. Picked up a couple saves recently. Seems to have gotten back on track. But then Jose Alvarado was called in to clean up the mess yesterday, and it wasn't Romano's mess. Romano pitched, I believe, a clean 7th inning. So I mean, Gabe Kapler's not even the manager in Philly anymore, and you can't figure out that closing situation. Any interest in picking up Romano?
I saw his save earlier this week and I was like, maybe I should pick him up. Maybe he's back. But then I kind of sat on that impulse and I think that was the right call. I think it's just I have enough closing headaches on my hand on my team that I don't know that I need to introduce this into my roster. I think, if you're really desperate for saves, probably you should hand if Jordan Romano's is on your wire and you have Alvarez, maybe you should handcuff them. Because clearly it looks like Philly is kind of playing matchups with maybe Alvarez getting the priority, but I think Romano might now have some vulture saves. But other than that, I think that's just another headache that might not go in your favor.
Yeah, I think you mean Alvarado.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. My bad.
I will say though, when Romano got the save, it wasn't yesterday, but the day before, it was Alvarado who was called in the 8th, I believe, to face the better part
Yeah.
of the lineup. So I
Yep.
think Alvarado is still the trusted,
High
highest
leverage.
leverage guy, which will, I think, play into more saves than not. And as somebody who has Alvarado and really struggling in the closer department, I did not pick up Jordan Romano.
Well, you also have a bit of a crunch going on right now.
Shh, nobody needs to know about that crunch. I'm trying to make trades. Shh, don't tell anybody. All right, last player we got up on the rundown today, St. Louis Cardinals shortstop Mason Wynn. Now, there's a guy who started, you want to talk about a terrible start. Rafi Devers was bad. And then there's like 50 feet of crap. And then there was Mason Wynn.
Yeah.
Right? Mason Wynn was really, 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 really bad the first couple weeks of the season. But since then, he's broken out? Question mark? What do you think?
I'm not sure. I think, like as we were talking about with Wilson, shortstop is just so deep and like like if you're gonna stand out, you really have to stand out. And just kind of looking at his numbers, I kind of think he's just hot right now. And I just kind of think he's probably gonna do what he did last season, which is 15 homers, 11 stolen bases, and hit 267, which is pretty good. It's decent, but in fantasy terms, shallow league, I don't know if that's starting shortstop.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. I'll say this about Mason Wynn. He's just one of those guys that I look at and I go, there's maybe more here. I know he's not the biggest guy, he's 5'9", but I
Oh.
just think that there might be more to this. But he could be Orlando Arcia, right? Like
Mhm.
right. Yeah, man. He's a tricky one to figure out because his exit velocities, just like Josh Young, not great.
Mhm.
Even despite this power output, he has increased his launch angle. I don't know. I just feel like maybe there's something here, and this might be a hot streak this year, but perhaps next year because we
Oh.
are seeing improved skill set. But maybe if he can carry it through most of this season with the expected up and downs a uh, that a 23-year-old might have, maybe next year is when we'll see who Mason Wynn really is.
Mhm. Maybe.
I just have, it's just one of those feelings about a certain player, and I just have that about Mason Wynn. But for now, if you need an injury, fill in at shortstop, would you prioritize Jacob Wilson or Mason Wynn?
I think I would go with Win because I think he has more potential to give you, even though he's not like prodigious power speed. I think that's more part of his game than Wilson. So I would prioritize Wynn.
I would agree with you on that too. That does it for today. This was a good one. I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed breaking down your team. That was a lot of fun. And maybe next week we'll take a look at mine, and we'll talk about maybe when to let go of some players. Like it's getting late quick. It's still early, but it's getting late quick. You still need to have a modicum of patience, but we are getting to that point in the season where maybe you can start making some moves, set yourself up for the rest of the year. But that just about wraps it up for this week's episode. We'll be back next week with 2 new episodes of Midweek Minutes to get you caught up on all of the most important news and notes from around the league, and of course, our full-length episode as well. And to make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. That means Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, the Odyssey app, all major podcast platforms. If you look for us, we're there. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Again, sorry that it came out a little bit later, but we'll be back next week. So for Josh, I'm Eric saying, see you next time.
Here comes Zebby.